Dr. Lila Reyes had built her career on remembering. At 28, she was one of Chicago's most promising clinical psychologists, specializing in memory reconstruction therapy for trauma survivors. Her methods were unconventional but remarkably effective. She helped patients recover suppressed memories through guided visualization and cognitive mapping techniques that she'd pioneered during her doctoral research. Lila was strikingly beautiful in an understated way that commanded respect rather than distraction. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a professional chignon. Her warm brown eyes held a depth that made patients feel instantly understood, and her presence radiated the kind of calm confidence that made people trust her with their deepest secrets. Her practice, located in a renovated Victorian townhouse on the north side, had a 6-month waiting list. But on November 3, 2019, Dr. Lila Reyes began forgetting her own patients. And that was when the real nightmare started. It began with Emma Rodriguez, a 34-year-old marketing executive who had been seeing Lila for 8 months to recover memories from a childhood car accident. Emma had been making breakthrough progress, finally starting to piece together fragments of that traumatic night 20 years ago. Their Thursday afternoon sessions had become the highlight of Emma's week, a safe space where buried memories could surface without judgment. When Emma arrived for her 2 p.m. appointment on November 3rd, she found Dr. Reyes' office door locked and the waiting room empty. After 20 minutes, she called the main number, reaching Lila's receptionist, Mrs. Chun. "I'm sorry, but Dr. Reyes doesn't have any appointments scheduled for today," Mrs. Chun said, her voice confused. "In fact, I don't show you as a current patient in our system at all." Emma insisted there had been a mistake. She had been seeing Dr. Reyes every Thursday for 8 months. She had receipts, insurance claims, detailed therapy notes in her own journal. But when she provided her patient ID number, Mrs. Chen's computer showed no record of anyone by that name or number. "Perhaps you're thinking of a different practice?" Mrs. Chun suggested gently. "Dr. Reyes specializes in memory reconstruction therapy, but we've never had an Emma Rodriguez as a patient." Emma drove home in a state of panic, convinced there had been some kind of clerical error. But when she reviewed her personal records, something impossible had occurred. Her therapy notes, written in her own handwriting, were still there. Her insurance statements showing copays to Dr. Reyes' practice were still there. But her phone showed no record of calls to or from the office. Her calendar had no recurring Thursday appointments. Most disturbing, when she looked up Dr. Reyes online, the practice website showed different specializations than she remembered. That evening, Emma called 3 other patients she'd met in Dr. Reyes' waiting room over the months, people who had become friendly acquaintances, bonding over their shared therapeutic journey. All 3 insisted they had never heard of Dr. Lila Reyes. When Emma described her in detail, down to the small scar above her left eyebrow and her habit of tapping her pen during sessions, they looked at her as if she was describing a complete stranger. By November 10th, 7 more patients had similar experiences. All had been seeing Dr. Reyes for various trauma-related memory issues. All had detailed records of their sessions. All found themselves suddenly erased from the practice's system, with staff members who acted as if they had never existed as patients. Detective Marcus Rivera, now working missing persons full-time after the Peterson family case, was called in when one of the forgotten patients filed a report. What he found challenged every assumption about memory, identity, and the nature of human consciousness. Dr. Lila Reyes' practice was real, her credentials were legitimate, and she was seeing patients daily. But the patients she was currently treating were completely different from the ones who claimed to have been forgotten. Her appointment book was full, her case files were detailed and consistent, and her staff had worked with her for years without any gaps or inconsistencies. Yet 23 people insisted they had been her patients and had simply been erased from existence in her world. Detective Rivera interviewed Dr. Reyes herself, finding a composed, professional woman who seemed genuinely confused by the allegations. She had no memory of ever treating any of the people who claimed to be her former patients, despite their detailed knowledge of her office, her methods, and personal details that only patients would know. "I specialize in helping people recover lost memories," Dr. Reyes told Rivera during their interview. "The irony isn't lost on me that people are claiming I've somehow lost memories of them. But I keep meticulous records, detective. I've never treated these individuals. But as Rivera dug deeper, he discovered something that made the case even more complex. Dr. Lila Reyes herself was experiencing memory gaps. Her personal assistant, Jennifer Walsh, noticed it first. Dr. Reyes would reference conversations they'd never had, mention appointments with colleagues who insisted they hadn't met with her, and occasionally seemed surprised by case files in her own handwriting that she didn't remember creating. She started asking me to confirm things that we'd already discussed multiple times, Jennifer told Rivera. At first, I thought she was just stressed or overworked, but then she started forgetting entire patients. Not the ones who filed complaints, but current patients she'd been seeing for months. Dr. Sarah Winters, the neurologist examining Lila, had never seen anything like it. It's as if her brain is constantly rewriting itself, she explained to Rivera. Normal memory formation involves encoding new information while maintaining existing memories. But Dr. Reyes' brain appears to be selectively overwriting certain memories while creating entirely new ones. The breakthrough came when Rivera discovered that all of Dr. Reyes' forgotten patients had been working on recovering memories of the same type of trauma. Childhood incidents they couldn't fully remember but that had shaped their entire lives. The therapy process involved guided visualization where patients would describe their fragmented memories, while Dr. Reyes helped them construct a coherent narrative. But what if the process was working in reverse? What if Dr. Reyes wasn't helping patients recover their memories, but was somehow absorbing them, and in doing so, was losing pieces of her own identity? Dr. Elena Vasquez, the psychiatrist who had consulted on the Peterson case, was brought in to evaluate this unprecedented situation. Her analysis revealed something that challenged fundamental assumptions about memory and consciousness. Memory isn't just personal history, Dr. Vasquez explained. It's the foundation of identity itself. If someone is somehow absorbing other people's memories while losing their own, they're not just changing what they remember, they're becoming a different person entirely. The theory was supported by testimony from Dr. Reyes' current patients. Several reported that during recent sessions, she had demonstrated knowledge of their cases that they had never shared with her. She would reference childhood details, family dynamics, and traumatic events that patients hadn't yet recovered in therapy. More disturbing, patients reported that Dr. Reyes sometimes seemed to confuse their memories with her own. She would slip into first-person narratives, describing their childhood traumas as if she had experienced them herself. She started crying during our session, reported current patient Michael Torres. But she was crying about my sister's death, not her own experience. She talked about when Sarah died as if Sarah had been her sister, not mine. It was like she was living my memories instead of helping me process them. The investigation took a darker turn when Rivera discovered that Dr. Reyes' own childhood was largely undocumented. Birth records showed she was born Lila Maria Reyes in El Paso, Texas, but there were no school records, no family photographs, no evidence of the childhood she described in her professional biography. Her graduate school professors remembered her as an exceptional student, but couldn't recall personal details about her background. Her doctoral dissertation on memory reconstruction therapy was brilliant, but her research methods were so innovative that they couldn't be verified through traditional academic channels. Most disturbing was the discovery that Dr. Reyes had been treating patients with memory issues for 7 years, and the pattern of forgotten patients went back to the beginning of her practice. Every year, approximately 20 patients would suddenly find themselves erased from her system, replaced by a new set of patients with similar traumatic memory issues. Dr. Winters expanded her neurological examination, using advanced imaging techniques to map Dr. Reyes' brain activity during therapy sessions. What she found defied medical understanding. During sessions with patients, Dr. Reyes' brain showed synchronized activity with her patients' brains. Neural patterns associated with memory formation in the patient's mind appeared simultaneously in Dr. Reyes' brain, but in reverse. As patients accessed traumatic memories, those same neural patterns were being encoded in Dr. Reyes' mind while being diminished in the patient's brains. She's not just absorbing their memories, Dr. Winters reported. She's physically taking them. The patient's brains show reduced activity in areas where they've recovered traumatic memories, while Dr. Reyes' brain shows increased activity in those same areas. But the most shocking discovery came when Rivera traced the history of the building where Dr. Reyes had her practice. The Victorian townhouse had previously housed another therapy practice, run by Dr. Margaret Sullivan, who had specialized in the same type of memory reconstruction therapy. Dr. Sullivan had mysteriously disappeared in 2012, leaving behind a thriving practice and dozens of patients who suddenly found themselves forgotten by the office staff. The practice had been closed for several months before Dr. Reyes took over the lease and opened her own office in the same space. Rivera located Dr. Sullivan's former patients and discovered an identical pattern. 23 people remembered detailed therapy sessions with Dr. Sullivan, but had been erased from all official records. Dr. Sullivan's staff insisted they had never treated these patients, despite the patients' detailed knowledge of the office, the methods, and personal information about Dr. Sullivan. The building's history revealed an even more disturbing pattern. Since 1987, for different therapists specializing in memory work had operated practices in the same building. All had disappeared under similar circumstances. All had left behind forgotten patients and taken over by new therapists who seemed to have no connection to their predecessors. But Rivera's investigation revealed that they weren't different people at all. Facial recognition analysis of available photographs showed that Dr. Lila Reyes, Dr. Margaret Sullivan, Dr. Patricia Chan, 1999 to 2012, and Dr. Amanda Foster, 1987 to 1999, were the same woman, aging normally across 32 years but apparently assuming new identities every 7 to 10 years. Each identity came with a complete background, professional credentials, and personal history. But each identity also showed the same pattern: exceptional success in memory reconstruction therapy, followed by patients being systematically forgotten and replaced with new ones carrying similar traumas. Dr. Vasquez developed a theory that challenged conventional understanding of consciousness and identity. What if Dr. Reyes, or whatever her real name is, isn't deliberately taking these memories? What if she's trapped in a cycle where she must continuously absorb traumatic memories to maintain her own sense of self? The theory suggested that the original Dr. Reyes, whoever she had been, had experienced a trauma so severe that it shattered her own memory system. In order to maintain psychological coherence, her mind had learned to rebuild itself using fragments of other people's memories. But traumatic memories were unstable, requiring constant replenishment to maintain her constructed identity. Every 7 years, when her accumulated memories began to degrade, she would unconsciously create a new identity and begin the process again. The patients she forgot weren't having their memories stolen. They were having their traumas resolved so completely that the memories became integrated into her own psychological structure. She's not a predator, Dr. Vasquez concluded. She's someone whose own trauma was so complete that she can only exist by helping others process theirs. But in doing so, she's trapped in an endless cycle of assuming new identities built from borrowed pain. The final piece of the puzzle came when Rivera discovered that the Victorian townhouse had been the site of a family tragedy in 1987. A fire had killed 4 members of the Reyes family, including 7-year-old Lila Maria Reyes. The only survivor had been found blocks away with severe head trauma and complete memory loss. She had been placed in foster care and disappeared from official records when she aged out of the system. The girl who survived that fire lost everything: her family, her home, her memories, her sense of self. Dr. Vasquez explained to Rivera. So she spent her life trying to rebuild an identity using other people's memories. But she was drawn back to the place where her original trauma occurred, unconsciously trying to process what happened to her. As Rivera's investigation continued, Dr. Reyes' current patients began reporting disturbing changes. She would sometimes refer to them by names of previous forgotten patients. She would confuse details from different cases, creating hybrid memories that belonged to neither her current patients nor her previous ones. Most significantly, she began experiencing gaps in her professional memory. She would forget therapeutic techniques she had used for years, lose track of treatment plans she had developed, and sometimes sit in sessions staring blankly at patients as if she had never seen them before. On December 15, 2019, Dr. Lila Reyes failed to show up for her appointments. Her office was found empty, with patient files scattered across the floor and her personal belongings abandoned. Security cameras showed her leaving the building at 3:47 a.m., carrying a single suitcase and looking confused, as if she didn't recognize her surroundings. But Rivera's investigation revealed something that suggested the cycle was continuing. 3 days later, a new therapy practice opened in a building 10 blocks away. Dr. Sofia Martinez, specializing in memory reconstruction therapy, began seeing patients with traumatic memory issues. Dr. Martinez's credentials were impeccable, her methods were innovative, and her success rate was remarkable. She was a beautiful woman in her late 20s with kind eyes and a professional manner that made patients trust her immediately. When Rivera visited the new practice, he found Dr. Martinez in her office, reviewing case files for patients she claimed to have been treating for months. She had no memory of ever being called Lila Reyes, no knowledge of the previous practice, and seemed genuinely confused by his questions about memory absorption and forgotten patients. But the patients she was treating told familiar stories. They were recovering memories of childhood traumas, making breakthrough progress in therapy, and felt safer than they had in years. And in her appointment book, Rivera noticed were scheduled sessions with several people who had been forgotten by Dr. Reyes. People who had no memory of scheduling appointments with Dr. Martinez, but found themselves looking forward to Thursday sessions they couldn't explain. As of today, September 13, 2025, Dr. Sofia Martinez continues to practice memory reconstruction therapy. Her patients adore her, her success rate is exceptional, and her waiting list grows longer each month. But every few weeks, Rivera receives calls from people who insist they used to be her patients but have been erased from her records. They have detailed memories of sessions, personal knowledge of her methods, and insurance records showing payments to her practice. Dr. Martinez has no memory of these people. Her staff insists they've never been patients. But the forgotten patients remember everything about their therapy, except why they suddenly stopped needing it. The cycle continues. Every 7 years, she forgets who she was and becomes someone new. Every 7 years, she takes on the traumatic memories of dozens of patients, processing their pain so completely that they can finally move on with their lives. But the cost is her own identity, forever lost in the labyrinth of borrowed memories and reconstructed trauma. Somewhere in Chicago, a beautiful young therapist helps people recover their past while losing pieces of her own. She doesn't remember being Lila Reyes or Margaret Sullivan or Patricia Chun or Amanda Foster. She doesn't remember the fire that destroyed her childhood or the decades of searching for an identity that was burned away before she was old enough to understand what she had lost. She only knows that she feels compelled to help people remember, even if it means forgetting herself entirely. And every night at 3:47 a.m., she wakes up from dreams of fire and family voices she can't quite recognize, carrying memories that might be hers or might belong to someone else entirely. The woman who helps others remember is trapped in a cycle of forgetting. And the only way she can exist is by becoming someone new every time the borrowed memories begin to fade. In the end, the most tragic disappearance isn't always death. Sometimes it's the slow erasure of self, one memory at a time, until nothing remains but the echo of who you used to be and the borrowed pain of everyone you've tried to help. Dr. Sofia Martinez doesn't know she's disappearing. She only knows she has patients to help, memories to reconstruct, and a purpose that feels both foreign and familiar. The cycle continues. The memories fade. And somewhere in the space between forgotten and remembered, a little girl who died in a fire 38 years ago keeps trying to come home.